A Scottish sheep farmer rolled into the most sacred oval in American racing, driving a car with its engine mounted in the wrong place. The men who ruled Indianapolis took one look and laughed. 2 years later, that same car led 190 of 200 laps, shattered a speed record nobody thought possible, and put an entire generation of American race cars out of business in a single afternoon. This is the story of the Lotus 38 and the race that ended the Roadster forever. To understand how strange that sight was, you have to understand what the Indianapolis 500 meant in the early 1960s. It was the richest race on the planet, the most dangerous, and by far the most stubborn about tradition. Since the early 50s, one type of machine had owned the place: the front-engined Roadster. Big, heavy cars built around a 4-cylinder Offenhauser engine, hand-built by American craftsmen, driven by men who treated Gasoline Alley like church. Nobody questioned the formula, because nobody believed it needed questioning. You showed up with a Roadster, you wrestled it around the bricks for 500 miles, and if you were tough enough, you went home rich. And Indianapolis money dwarfed anything Europe had to offer, which is exactly why it drew the hungriest drivers in the country. Men like Foyt and Parnelli Jones didn't just race there, they owned the place, in every sense that mattered. A Formula One car, by comparison, was a punchline. Grand Prix machines weighed hundreds of pounds less than a Roadster and looked, to American eyes, like they'd fold in a stiff crosswind. The idea that one of those spindly little things could survive 4 hours of flat-out running at Indy wasn't taken seriously by anyone in the garages. That confidence was about to become the most expensive mistake in American racing history. The invasion started, oddly enough, with an American. Dan Gurney had raced in Formula One and seen firsthand what a lightweight British chassis could do. He became convinced that a nimble European car, stuffed with a big American engine, could tear the Roadsters apart. So he brought Lotus founder Colin Chapman to Indianapolis to see it for himself. Chapman looked at the old-fashioned machinery, looked at the size of the purse, and made up his mind on the spot. Gurney then introduced him to Ford, which wanted a way into America's biggest race and had the money to fund a real assault. On paper, it looked like an experiment. In reality, it was an ambush years in the making, because Chapman had already watched rear-engined cars sweep the front-engine machines out of Formula One. He knew the same physics applied in Indiana. Lighter cars are easier on tires, they carry more speed through the corners, and they burn less fuel. Over 500 miles, every one of those advantages compounds. When Team Lotus unloaded at the Speedway in 1963, the reception sat somewhere between amusement and contempt. The regulars called the rear-engine cars funny cars and joked that they were built for drivers who liked to be pushed around. The man behind the wheel did nothing to change their minds. Jim Clark was a soft-spoken farmer from the Scottish borders, a man who'd grown up herding sheep, not trading paint on dirt ovals. He gave short answers, avoided the press, and looked faintly out of place in a circus built for swagger. Parnelli Jones later admitted that he and Foyt gave the Formula One men no respect at all when they showed up. What nobody at Indy knew was that this shy farmer was about to win the Formula One World Championship that same year, driving with a smoothness that had already worn down every rival he had in Europe. The old guard looked at Clark and saw a lamb walking into a slaughterhouse. They had it exactly backward. His first attempt, in 1963, came closer to victory than anyone expected. Clark ran with the leaders all day in the Lotus 29, while the Roadsters burned through tires and made 2 or 3 pit stops. His car needed just one. Late in the race, Parnelli Jones's Roadster began leaking oil onto the track, the exact violation the chief steward had warned would draw a black flag. It never came. Officials hesitated. Jones's team argued the leak had stopped, and Clark followed him home in second. Chapman was furious, and even American writers agreed the wrong car had been protected. But the message from that afternoon was unmistakable. A team that had never seen the place before had nearly won it outright, and plenty of people watching believed it already had. In 1964, Clark came back with a new Lotus and a purpose-built Ford 4-cam V8, and the joke was already starting to wear thin. He set a record pole position and led from the start. Then his soft compound tires, mandated by the rules, began shredding under the strain, and the flailing rubber tore into his rear suspension. His race ended before half distance. Foyt went on to win in a traditional roadster and mocked the rear-engined cars on his way to victory lane. He had no idea he'd just scored the last win a front-engined roadster would ever take at Indianapolis. The old guard celebrated like the natural order had been restored. In England, Chapman and his engineers were already drawing the car that would end it for good. For 1965, Chapman and designer Len Terry built something genuinely new. The Lotus 38 was the team's first Indianapolis car with a full aluminum monocoque tub, stiffer, safer, and lighter than anything the roadster builders had ever attempted. It carried bigger ventilated disc brakes and reworked suspension, and it weighed barely 600 kilograms, a featherweight next to the iron it was built to bury. Behind the driver sat Ford's fuel-injected quad-cam V8, producing roughly 500 horsepower and running on alcohol. Because Indianapolis only turns left, Terry offset the whole car within its wheelbase, so the weight sat exactly where the corners wanted it. One Lotus mechanic later said there was almost nothing left to fix once the car arrived. They pushed it out each morning. Clark went faster, and they wheeled it back in. Here's the part people forget. The 1965 Indy 500 fell on the same weekend as the Monaco Grand Prix, the crown jewel of Formula One. There was no way to run both. Team Lotus walked away from Monaco entirely, handing their rivals free championship points so their driver could chase unfinished business in Indiana. Winning at Monaco that year was worth around £700. Indianapolis paid out tens of thousands. But it wasn't only the money. Clark had been robbed in 1963 and broken in 1964, and both he and Chapman wanted this race more than they wanted Monte Carlo. Qualifying told the story before the race even started. Clark became the first driver in history to break 160 miles per hour in official Indy qualifying, setting lap records as he went. A rookie named Mario Andretti was already running quick in a rear-engined car of his own. Foyt answered with an even faster lap to snatch pole position, but he did it in a Lotus. When the 33-car field was set, 27 of them carried their engines behind the driver. Only 6 roadsters remained. 2 years earlier, the funny cars had been a joke. Now, the fastest men in America were fighting each other for British machinery. Ford brought in the Wood brothers, the legendary Virginia pit crew famous for the fastest stops in NASCAR, to run the Lotus fuel rig. They broke in the hose couplings by hand until the fuel flowed almost instantly, and on race day, they could pour 50 gallons into the car in well under half a minute. The Lotus was so gentle on its Firestone tires that it never needed a single tire change across 500 miles. While the roadsters burned time in the pits swapping rubber, Clark would stop twice, take on fuel, and go. On May 31st, 1965, in front of one of the largest crowds ever to watch a motor race, Jim Clark settled the argument. He led from the start, handed the lead to Foyt for a single lap, passed him back on lap 3, and simply vanished into the distance. Foyt's transmission failed past half distance. Parnelli Jones chased as hard as he could and ran out of fuel on the final lap, still holding on for second. Andretti brought his car home third and took Rookie of the Year. Only 11 cars finished, and far ahead of every one of them, the sheep farmer in the little green car crossed the line nearly 2 minutes clear of the field. Clark led 190 of the 200 laps, more than anyone had led at Indianapolis in over a decade, and became the first winner ever to average above 150 miles an hour. He was also the first winner from outside America in 49 years. No front-engined roadster ever won the Indianapolis 500 again. Within a couple of seasons, the layout the roadster builders had spent a decade perfecting was gone from the front of the field entirely, replaced by the template Chapman and Terry had drawn on a single winter's worth of paper. Clark went home with the richest prize in motorsport and closed out the year as Formula One world champion, the only driver in history to hold both titles in the same season. The men who'd called his car a joke spent the rest of their careers racing rear-engine machines of their own. Indianapolis laughed at the Lotus 38 right up until the moment it rewrote what an American race car was supposed to be. If you want more stories like this one, from the forgotten machines to the moments that changed automotive history for good, stick around Engine Edge. There's another one waiting for you right now.